The human brain is a complicated little thing. Sometimes it doesn't work the way that we think it should, and you get diagnosed with what is called a mental illness. The thing about these discrepancies of human consciousness is that they have existed for basically as long as humans have existed, and only relatively recently have we actually been able to diagnose and learn and treat them. And because of that, we are now in an era of complete awareness of them, causing many a film to be made about many a mental illness. No matter the flavor you got. Depression, anxiety, BPD, ADHD, do-re-mi, blue raspberry. Whatever your problem is upstairs, there's a piece of film that you can relate to. But what about 100 years ago? Slim pickings. There was not nearly the same range of diagnoses there are today. It was, I don't know, you're just kind of crazy, so I'm just gonna push you somewhere else. So I tried to find what were the first films that dealt with mental illness in any capacity, keeping in mind the point of this show that it had to be 100 years old or older. In this episode of Century Old Cinema, let's see how the silent era talked about mental health. Let's start with the oldest of the bunch. The Escaped Lunatic by Wallace McCutcheon Sr. from 1904. A fun fact about this film is that if you look closely, you'll notice that you can't tell what the fuck is going on. Basically, the only way you can watch this film is through a YouTube upload, which description tells us why it looks like this. And that's because it is a rip from a recorded DVD that ripped the footage off of a VHS camera that was filming this being screened. It's compressed so bad that I feel like this can't even be considered to be watching the film. I don't think this is how Mr. McCutcheon Sr. expected people to watch this. But what are these vague human shapes even doing? It's a chase film, a very popular genre at the time. A man dressed as Napoleon, I'm taking the internet's word on that, because I guess that's a Napoleon costume, escapes from an asylum and is chased down by a handful of employees. It's ridiculous. So, the possible first example of a mentally unwell person put to film is definitely not a good portrayal. He's Napoleon why? Because he's crazy, and that's what crazy people do, I guess? They do wacky things. Can't bring my boy anywhere, he's so random. He's shown as a stereotypical nutjob, what I assume most people at the time, and now to an extent, think people in mental health facilities are like. He turns into a feral animal. At one point he throws a guy off a bridge like it's nothing. The obvious dummy being a part of that old cinema charm. That's it. That's all I got. It's 7 minutes long, and most of that time you're just going to be trying to figure out what the f*** you're even watching. Next up is another short film, The Man Who Hanged Himself, also known as Attempted Suicide, by Louis J. Gasnier from 1906. A film starring Max Linder, a man who deserves an entire video devoted to him. I mean, just look at some of the highlights from his Wikipedia article. My god, man. An interesting man for sure, but a part of cinematic history nonetheless. You see, he was a slapstick comedian before the likes of Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton came to the scene. What exactly is a comedian doing in a film titled Attempted Suicide? He's making it funny. What else is there to do? Yes, even 100 years ago, humanity couldn't help but make jokes about the darkest possible thing. Max Linder plays a man who's sad about losing his girlfriend and decides, that's it. He goes to hang himself, and physical comedy ensues. He's barely hanging from a tree when a boy comes along who doesn't help at all, but gets an old guy who also doesn't help, and the two of them leave to then bring the whole goddamn town. But, oh, it's too late. He's gone. A man then puts a bike tire pump into his mouth and revives him. It's funny! It's funny! It is actually kind of funny. I personally like these silent era comedies because the jokes are timeless. It's all physical. Look at the way he hangs from the tree. It's funny. It's dark, but it's funny. The key takeaway from this is the fact that it's a dark comedy from 1906. This exact joke has been replicated in modern stuff. Making light out of the dark is a natural way of coping with it. Sometimes shit sucks so bad, all you can do is laugh about it. It's for that reason that I find this film fascinating in a human psychology sense, especially since it was made in a time where people were really trying to hone down the power of cinema. What is this exciting new art form? What is it capable of? And then some French guy comes along and is like, what if a guy hung himself and it was hilarious? The last two films we're going to look at are full features, no more shorts. starting with The Woman in White by Ernest C. Ward from 1917. This is a melodrama thriller. It's about a guy who's trying to kill his wife for her inheritance, but then his ex, whom he put in an asylum because she found out about a different scheme he was pulling, shows up and tries to warn his wife about his evil nature. And then he has this dick-riding friend that's a Brazilian doctor who's helping him. This is less of a film about mental health and more about how men manipulated the poor mental health care system at the time to abuse women. The men here are cartoonishly evil and greedy that it does make you feel bad for them. It's alright though, because in the end everybody gets their little comeuppance. There is this fire stunt at the end, which at the time the only way they would have been able to do this is to just light the real set on fire and film it, so that's kind of cool. And a little frightening, because you know that they did not have many safety standards at the time. But fuck it, anything for the shot. This film is not anything special, to be honest. And sure, there are characters who are mentally unwell, but it's simply due to the men abusing them. It would be better if everybody wasn't so melodramatic. There's multiple times where a woman says something and it's just so powerful that they faint afterwards. For this last one, we're going to Japan with Tenosuke Kunugasa's A Page of Madness from 1926. This, to me, feels like the true first account of showcasing mental illness in film. It has experimental sequences mixed with horror that feel ahead of its time. The basic premise is a custodian gets a job at an asylum to attempt to break out his wife. That means 3/4 of the films we are looking at have an asylum be a part of the plot, because that seems to be the extent of mental health at the time. Strangely enough, it's another film that shows men as an antagonistic force that women are victims of. There's multiple times where the men in the asylum see a woman and turn into actual dogs. There's this moment near the end where it happens, and all the men are outside their cells. The camera work and editing is quite impactful. It's genuinely scary. Now, the idea of making a film about mental health a horror movie could be seen as problematic, but at the time, it was a great unknown for the most part, and the unknowns of the world are scary. I think it works because it's clearly critiquing the stigmas and treatment of mental health at the time. The janitor wants to break his wife out, believing the place is not helping her. In fact, she seems in danger. There's another patient simply referred to as the dancer. The film opens in this experimental montage sequence with them dancing. This genuinely might be one of my favorite openings in any film. It's poetic and beautiful while also setting the tone for this eerie film. There's also no dialogue, not even slides of text. It's completely silent besides the soundtrack. The lack of words elevate this into a psychological experience. Mix that with the experimental aspects and you feel sucked into this world. I particularly like the way it shoots faces. And faces are emphasized throughout the film for a reason, because it ends with masks being placed on patients. We then see the janitor and other characters prance around in masks, asking the question, are we really sane, or are we just wearing a mask? This is a deeply philosophical theme for a film made in 1926. And it's kind of a scary thought. The only thing that separates the ones in the asylum from the ones in the real world is a mask. It's telling us about the mask that we all put on and present every day to go out into the real world and pretend like we're not all secretly losing our mind about something or the other thing or whatever. The people in the asylum simply don't have that mask. They've dropped it, or they're refusing to put it on anymore. It shows mental illness as something to have sympathy towards. The janitor still loves his wife no matter her mental state, and we see how the people in these asylums are not treated the best. It's shown as scary because it kind of is, especially at the time. They didn't know about things like chemical imbalances in the brain that were the cause of some of these illnesses. But the film shows us that these are people still worthy of love and life, and maybe they aren't too dissimilar to us. We're just the mask wearers. And there you have it. Those were some of the earliest portrayals of mental health in film. Are some of these a stretch? Yes. But it's all I could find that was made over 100 years ago. Mental health in film really started coming out in the 40s and the 50s, kind of the same time that scientists were learning more about it. Also the fact that these are all silent films, and most silent films just aren't dramas. But either way, I find their similarities to be very fascinating. These little through lines, the asylums, men being abusive to women, the French. And while a lot of these films maybe don't discuss the topic as we would like them to, I think it's still fascinating that even in the early days of cinema, this was something that directors and writers wanted to talk about. Specifically, A Page of Madness is this very philosophical film. The subconscious, the idea of wearing a mask as the real you or the fake you, critiquing these systems at large that are trying to care for us. We're a little spoiled now because there are so many films made about basically any mental illness you could think of. Imagine if back in the day somebody watched an attempted suicide and laughed and it changed their goddamn life. Mental health is a very rich topic to make films about. Cinema is about capturing human emotions. Mental illness is complicated human emotions. The fact that they were trying to get even a resemblance of this complicated thing is impressive. Thank you so much for watching. All of these films will be in the link in the description since they're all public domain. Also, check out my Patreon because I've been uploading multiple videos and they've gotten completely blocked due to copyright, and so they're there on Patreon. That's all I got for you today. Have a good one.